Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm so happy that you are circling up with me today for another transformational conversation. I'm Linda Joy, midlife mindset elevation coach, intentional living guide, and publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine. Since 2006, Aspire has been inspiring, empowering, and supporting women in living their best lives and living from the inside out and owning their authentic voice and power. And if you haven't grabbed your free subscription, run to subscribe to aspire.com. So, my daughter's going to be 39, and I can still remember when I came home from the hospital with her. As women, as moms, we all expect the sleepless nights, the life changes that can bring on a little bit of stress. And even at times we expect that, hey, we may be touched by postpartum depression. Those are all things that new parents expect. But sometimes when the baby comes home, we can experience sudden relationship and personal challenges that maybe come as a big surprise. And Catherine O'Brien is a licensed marriage and family therapist and the founder of happywithbaby.com. She created Happy with Baby in order for new parents to discover the advice that she wishes she could have had as a parent. She knows what it's like to be overwhelmed, out of energy, and out of ideas as a new parent. She created Happy with Baby in order for new and expecting parents to discover the advice she wishes she could have had when managing the expectations of parenthood and relationships. She's a Certified Gottman Educator, qualified to facilitate their Bringing Home Baby program, and has Postpartum Support International's Perinatal Mood Disorders Certification. In addition to acting as a volunteer as the California State Coordinator for PSI in the Greater Sacramento Area. Catherine, I am so excited to have you here.
Well, I am so excited to be here, Linda.
Well, I think it's such an important conversation. I was a single mom, so you're going to add a lot of layers onto that. But even watching my daughter, who's 39, who became a mom going to be 12 years ago, and watching her journey in transition, there's a lot of things I wish I knew at that time to help guide her. How I like to start the conversation is usually asking my clients, what led you to doing this work in the world? Because I'm always curious if it comes from their personal experience or not.
Yes, it definitely came from personal experience. I have two children with my husband. They're 14 and 10 this year, and we'd been together for quite a while, and I was a licensed marriage and family therapist at the time we got married and had our first son, and what felt so ill prepared for the impact it had on our relationship. I thought we had this strong, great relationship, and I don't know why I didn't realize, or my naivety or whatever, that it would be so difficult, like that someone moving in that didn't do anything and took a lot and was very needy would, impact our relationship. I don't know how I didn't realize that, but it did. And, and then just looking around and watching other new parents being part of different groups and stuff, and realizing okay, I'm definitely not alone in this. This is common. And just hearing other people tell stories, I was like, yeah, why are we not talking more about this? This is like 14 years ago now, but we weren't talking about it as much as we talk about it now. But of course, social media wasn't what it is now either. And I think that helps give voices to other people's stories, which is good, right? To know that we're not alone. But it definitely, um, I really wanted other people to know, this is hard. There's ways to get support and get help around these difficult moments. And I wanted to be able to share those tips with others.
And I think it's so important too, because, I'm 60, like I said, my daughter's 39, two different generations.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I have friends and nieces, and I have a large family. And one of the things I noticed in the relationship section is we as women, once that baby comes home, it's like our role completely changes. And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard sometimes for the partner to feel like they're still in that same dynamic. Because
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, like sometimes the males pout. And I'm curious on your insight of, you don't have time for me anymore. But
Yes.
you're balancing this whole new role that you're trying to understand.
Yeah.
And then that you have that dynamic. Is that what you've noticed too?
Yes, I definitely notice that. And one of the other things I notice that oftentimes or sometimes goes along with that is the partner is trying to help, is trying to find ways to contribute to, and it can be depending on the baby's needs and how things are, like if you're breastfeeding or not, like sometimes there's a limit of what the partner can do. So, but really encouraging them is to yeah, get involved, find other ways to help, but also, mom, you've got to let them help you. You know, a struggle I'll see happen is they don't do it quite the same way as the mom. And so moms can get a little, judgmental or critiquing or micromanaging, whatever you want to call it. And so then they'll start to pull back because it's like, well, if I'm not doing it right, I might as well not do it. And I'll go off and do these other things, like that I can be competent at. And so then there's this pull away from both. And so it's really working. I like to work with couples, how are you going to work together? How are you going to let each of you figure out how to do things? Because we have different learning curves when it comes to, everything, right? And especially taking care of a new baby, our child.
That was a big one. I'm so glad that you said that, because like I said, I have a big extended family, and when some of my nieces became moms, I can remember having the conversations he doesn't even hold it the same way. I tell him 10 times and I'm like, just let him be. He has to find his way. And you have to find your way. But when you judge him, he's going to pull away from the little one.
Yeah.
Because he's going to feel as if he's always doing it wrong. So as you were speaking, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can remember conversations of the last 10 years with my nieces and a couple other friends. So that's a big one, right? Because I think as a woman, we're so protective and nurturing and expect them to be us, and they are not us. They're not wired the same way.
No, not at all. And it really is good. I mean, there is research out there that shows it's okay for both parents to do things differently. Like our children, it helps their brains develop differently. Just even the way we play with them or nurture them or whatever is going to be different. And that's actually good for them, and it's okay. And then they get used to the two different types of ways that people are. Of course, people are more than two different types, but the multiple ways, and how you adapt and adjust to different people and different ways that they interact with you in the world. It is okay, and it's actually good for them. So and I could try exactly to do something exactly the way my husband would do it, and it wouldn't work for me, but it would work for him. I would have to find, I had to find my own ways to do things. And he just seemed more competent. He had more baby experience when we had our first child. And I was like, I was just, how did they even send me home with this baby? I literally do not know what I'm doing. So he had more experience. So, I did watch him and see, how he was doing things to help me. But then I had to find my own way too,
And how did you navigate those conversations? I think that's what a lot of women, because I think a lot of women keep quiet, right? And the resentment builds instead of having authentic conversations about, about the changes in the relationship. So do a lot of women just swallow it until they explode?
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that was what happened to us. Like I'll never forget. I think it was like 3 or something in the morning, and we're both exhausted, and I'm sure, our son had been up a couple times, and I was sure I had gotten up with him last, and my husband was sure he'd gotten up with him last, and you both just lay there hoping the other person moves first to go, because you're just so,
You're so
this is like
exhausted.
months in, you're just like at an exhaustion you didn't know you never experienced before. It's not the same as like cramming for, final exams in college or anything like that. It's a total different kind of like body, you know, pain level. But anyway, so we, it's like 3 a.m, and he, we got in the like, do you want to get him? And it'd be like, do I want to? No, I do not want to. I want you to do it. I'm too tired to, we just were so like, it's funny now, but at the moment it was like, and we're like both so mad at each other, which does not help, calm a baby down when you're both have all this tension. And so we're just like, okay, we need to figure something else out. Like, we've got to talk about this tomorrow, but this isn't working. How we're doing this isn't working. And and we were able to have a conversation the next day when we had a little bit of rest, right? And we're in that moment, and we're like, this is like, he's going through the litany of things he thought he was doing, and I shared my things, and it is like, I call it like this wall of resentment. We had so much resentment towards each other. It's like, you can't let that wall get too high, because it's going to be hard to tear it down, and then you have to rebuild that foundation. Like, you don't want it to get out of control. Like, you need to start addressing it. So then it became like, hey, we can't let these things go because it's not working. We need each other in a way we didn't need each other prior to having children. We're dependent on each other, for help, because I can't do it all. He can't do it all. And we've got to figure out, how are we working together? So, that's when we're like, we've got to, start having these check-in conversations, and on a regular basis, and talk about like where you're at, where I'm at, and how we can support each other. And if we both need support, like where are we getting extra help from other people? Because this is really taking a toll on us. And, I had like anger towards him that I had never had before. And I'm like, I don't like this, because I really, really like you. And I don't like being mad at you all the time.
Yeah.
So,
And I really love your honesty, because even you, with your background and tools, you're still a woman, right? You're
right.
still going through all the feelings and transitions that a lot of women have to go through when having a baby.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate your vulnerability and truth telling there, because I know from conversations in my own experience that when we're in it,
Mm-hmm.
we think something's wrong with us.
Yes.
And that always I get emotional. That always breaks my heart, mostly because I remember what it felt like for me, but I can remember my nieces and friends' daughters coming up, and the self-judgment was so damaging. So could you talk about that for a few moments?
Yeah. And I think, especially becoming a mom, right? Like, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to become a mom. We're supposed to enjoy every moment. It's this wonderful time. And it's like, yes, and it's so hard. It's life-changing. It's impossible to enjoy every moment. And it completely like changes our identity and everything. And like, we've got to figure out how we're doing things, how to do things differently, and who we are, um, and get the support from other people. Because, like, I think it's like, if we have a difficult time doing something, we think that there is something wrong with us, and there isn't. We're just learning how to navigate. And so, like, where do we get the help and get the support? And me learning, like, I learned how, like, I needed to reach out to my friends, and especially my friends that had kids that were older, like, and hearing them tell me stories, or them validate, like, yeah, Catherine, that's exactly you're on par for what it's like to be a parent. It's like, oh, okay, good. Like, because I'm thinking I'm doing something wrong in this. And like, I wish we could support each other more in the world of like the different challenges and difficulties like different people have for different reasons. We have kids with different needs, and Having 2 kids now, I know what it's like to like they're our kids and they're completely different. Like they're, in so many ways, and like what one needs, the other one doesn't. And like learning how to manage and navigate that is difficult as well. So it's like, so it'd be like, God, what's wrong with me now? Like this isn't working. This worked before. It's like, no, like this is a kid that has their own needs, and I'm having to figure out a different way. And so like, how do we support? How do we work on that? You know, how do we like stop making ourselves feel bad when we have a difficult time? Like, of course we are going to have a difficult time. We're dealing with people, right? We're dealing with, different moods and different things. Like it's not always going to be seamless.
I really appreciate that. And it's so much wisdom and insight just from your own journey, but in the work that you do with women. We're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we will be back in a moment with Catherine O'Brien, author of Happy with Baby, Essential Relationship Advice When Partners Become Parents. And you can learn more at happywithbaby.com. We'll be right back, my friends.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation, and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. With me today is licensed marriage and family therapist, Catherine O'Brien. She's also the author of Happy with Baby, Essential Relationship Advice When Partners Become Parents. So let's talk about the book for a moment. I love that we hear about a lot of baby books, right? About how to take care of the baby and all that, but you chose to focus on supporting the partners in a relationship to navigate that change. Was that choice to go down that path because of all the work you've done with your clients in your practice?
Yeah. So like I said, when I was fresh in it, I was like, how was I not prepared for this? Like, especially as, a marriage and family therapist, like, how was I not prepared for the impact on my relationship? And, and like I said, I was hearing other stories from other moms in these groups I was in, like different mom groups, workout groups and stuff. And so I just started like mentally, like putting a list together. Like, I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have known that. I wish someone had said, X, Y, and Z. And so then I got this opportunity. I was talking to a childbirth educator. She was opening up a new a store where she was going to be teaching classes and, prenatal yoga and postpartum, workout classes and everything. And she's like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a marriage and family therapist. She's like, oh, you should come teach a class at my, new store. And I was like, I have the perfect idea. I'm like, was just like almost like waiting for someone to ask me to like share. I'm like, I have this like perfect idea. Like, what do you think about like, we do so much birth prep. Like there's, there's all these classes for preparing for the day the baby is born, but there's not really, there's more now. I see more and more now, which makes me so happy. But there wasn't really anything about what happens after the baby comes home. We did take like a CPR class and a lactation class, but no one ever said anything about like, okay, what the impact would be on the relationship. And I really wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about like the impact and like how, some communication things, or just even things like, okay, this is what you're in for. And so when this is happening, like, it's okay, this is normal. And here's some things you can do about it. And so, I put together this workshop with her. Actually, we put it together for the first time and we taught it together. And then she's like, yeah, you should keep teaching this. It was, a great success. Like, but I can't teach it anymore. But why don't you go ahead and do it yourself? And I was like, what if you think, what do you think if my husband taught it with me? Because he had helped me. I had talked to him as I was preparing for it, because I really wanted to have the other perspective too. I just didn't want mine as a mom and as, a therapist. Like I wanted him as a dad, the partner, like his perspective too. So he gave me like so much good advice. And so we started teaching it together and have taught it together now for, well, let's see, my son's 14. So for like, it'll be 13 years in October. And and then that's kind of where the book came from, is like, I kept getting requests like, oh, you should share this more. And it's like, I can only be, so many places. So I kind of put together stories we've heard over the years and just, the advice and different scenarios we share in the workshop. And so we put it together in a book and talk about that. But I really felt like that was so important, because I think it's like, it's so much easier when we work together than when we're, trying to do it on our own, or working in different, silos and trying to like, how are we doing this? It's like, how do we work and communicate together to make things easier? I mean, it's not necessarily easy, but it's like, I think it's easier when we're supported by each other than when we're not.
Oh my God, yeah. And it's remembering that the love you had for each other,
Mm-hmm.
that called you to bring a child into the relationship, but we forget that when we're in the muck, right? When we're in the mud,
Right.
it's like, who are you and why are you here?
Yes.
I can remember all that. So I love it. I love that you also include stories in the book, because I'm an avid storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And I think through hearing other women's stories, it just reminds us that we're not alone, that we don't have to judge ourselves. And I love that he has been co-teaching with you, because I think it opens the doors to men to attend and listen and tune in, because it's not a woman telling them how they should be in the relationship once the baby comes. It's like the male perspective too. So I think that must be powerful for the attendees.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And, we've gotten feedback back from other people. And I always kind of laugh because, like I put together the workshop and, I did, research and, have validated him over more and more over time. And it's always so funny because he'll just say something, off the cuff. And then we'll run into, a couple later on and they'll be like, oh, yeah, remember when you guys said, whatever thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what he just said, just off, as just a dad, and so it's so funny, the things that people remember. It's not, I think we do want to know we're not alone. I run different, mom groups, parent groups and stuff. And it's always like someone will share a story, like their experience. And I've never had someone be like, oh, that's never happened, you're the first that's ever happened to. It's like, usually it's almost every single time someone's like, oh my gosh, I totally know what you're saying. Like, that's how I feel too. Or that's been my experience. And I just think it's so important that we hear that, because it does feel lonely. It feels harder if we feel like we're the only ones, and that no one understands. And we need that support. We need that support through life with whatever we're doing, to know that we're not alone and there's support out there and other people have experienced it too and they've gotten through it. And so what can we do? How can we, get the help that we need to get through whatever challenging time that we're going through?
Yeah, I know for me, and I'm a book publisher, so I've published 260 women's stories. So storytelling is a
Mm-hmm.
big part of my life for 13 years. And what I hear every time we publish a book with these women's stories is women who read it going, oh my God, I thought I was alone.
Yeah.
God, it was so wrong to have those thoughts. So I love that
Yeah.
also bring that in, give women opportunity to share their experiences, their truths, their fears, all of it, because it always reminds other women that everything they're feeling is normal. So they can
Yeah.
release the self-judgment, which I believe causes so much internal pressure.
Right. Right. It does. It does. And then, we hang on to guilt. We hang on to, that feeling of not being good enough, or, everyone else it seems to be becoming easier to, all the moms we see on social media. Not true. I know that for a fact, from many of these moms that you see on social media that are, like, have these picture perfect lives. And then, they'll tell me like, oh my gosh, it is hard. And, I put this out there hoping that it does get easier, that it is better than I think it is, or that's what I'll remember, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like it wasn't as hard as it feels right now. And I'm like, it's like, but I think also if we share the honesty of the difficulty of it, that's almost even more impactful and helpful to others.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you show up in your full truth
Mm-hmm.
for anything, whether it's about parenting or all that,
Mm-hmm.
and show that, especially like you mentioned social media, especially there, it's not all roses and butterflies, right? When we
Right.
show that we go through difficult times and maybe share how we're navigating it. Like when I go through difficult times, I have a strong gratitude practice, like focus on gratitude, Linda, focus on gratitude. And so I'll share the ups and the downs, always from the place of, I hope you can see that we all go through these transitions, right? And that maybe
Right.
my words will inspire someone. So I think that's really important too. We're going to take our next break. When we come back, I want to talk about self-care, right, for the overwhelmed parent, and especially the mom, because I know so many women, whether they're moms or not, self-care, taking time for themselves, prioritizing themselves, is at the very end of their to-do list. And I think it's a big cause of overwhelm, burnout, depression, etc. So with your permission, we'll talk about that when we come back from our break. We'll be back in a moment, my friends. Be sure to visit happywithbaby.com, grab a copy of Catherine O'Brien's book, and stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Do you wake up every day feeling passionately aligned with your goals and dreams? If not, you could be experiencing some emotional or energetic blocks. Cynthia Medina, certified transformational life and health coach and energy practitioner, has been dedicated to the emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being of women for over 20 years. She combines her intuitive knowledge and in-depth training in Ayurveda, naturopathy, meditation, NLP, Reiki, hypnosis, and more to support women to break through emotional and energetic blocks to healing and success. Cynthia is passionate about working with women ready to elevate their self-worth, self-esteem, energy, and health, and who are interested in learning how to create an optimal life and relationships by incorporating key strategies and mindfulness into their day. Visit CoachCynthiaMedina.com for supportive resources.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Thanks for being here with us today. I'm with Catherine O'Brien, licensed marriage and family therapist and the founder of happywithbaby.com. So let's talk about the self-care aspect, right? And giving ourselves permission to prioritize self-care. It sounds like you experienced it in your own life, but is that a pattern you kept seeing in your private practice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I continue, I continue to see it. I mean, the first, my book's divided into 3 sections, and they're based on 3 questions I ask all my couples. And the first one is about, like, what are you doing to make sure that you're taking care of yourself? Because I feel like, everything else, like, if you're not doing that on a regular basis, like, yeah, maybe we can get by here and there without putting into ourselves, but it's not a sustainable practice, right? And in the long term, it hurts. Well, it definitely hurts ourselves, but it hurts our family, right? If we're having difficulty, showing up, if we, because we're angry, because we're burnt out, because we get sick, whatever it is, like, it affects everybody. And so, and especially ourselves. So it's like, what are you doing? How are you taking care of yourself? What does that look like for you? And because for everyone, it's different, right? Whether it's like that, a gratitude practice, it's making sure you're getting, however many hours of sleep that you need. It's making sure you're drinking water. It's making sure you're moving your body, breathing, connecting with, friends or family, people that like help fill you up, and whatever that is, whatever you need, like, we need to do that. We need it, to get by. And I think it's so important that, I think the hard part for moms that I hear is, like, if I'm doing this, then I'm taking away time with my child. And especially like working moms, I shouldn't say especially, I mean, even stay-at-home moms have a difficult time with this. But I feel like if, working moms will tell me, like, oh, well, I was at work all day, so now if I go to the gym because I know I need to do that, it makes me feel better. If I take time to do that, then it's even more time I'm away from my child. And so, like, I always try to remind parents, the research shows it's not the quantity of time, it's the quality of time that you're with your child. So if you going to work out a couple days a week helps you be more present and be more in it because you feel better, then you need to do that for your family. You need to do that for you. And everyone, benefits, in the end from that.
And I believe that too, because that was something I struggled with before children and after, is the self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Something you spoke to is, if mama don't take care of herself, it ripples out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It ripples out to our relationship, our own sense of self-worth, and then it continues to ripple out everywhere. Right. So when you're doing couples counseling, I'm sure it's not just the mom that needs self-care, though I know she's usually the main caregiver. Does it work both ways?
Yeah. I talk to them like, how are you both making sure that you're getting time for you? And again, what each partner needs is often different, so it looks different. So it's like, I highly encourage them to have like these regular check-in conversations, like making sure that they're each getting that quality time for themselves, or like, whether they're going out with friends, like, I have some couples where it's like, oh, they each have a time where, or maybe they alternate a week, or they have a different time during the week where they meet up with friends, or the day that one of them gets to sleep, one sleeps in on Saturday, the next person sleeps in on Sunday, or, something like that. Like, how are they helping each other, get the things that they need to feel good or feel better, or, hey, it's a stressful season at, one parent's job. And so the other parent's kind of stepping up and doing, extra, but then it's like, how, do we need to bring in more support so that I'm still getting, time for myself too, so that I can like be here and be, more supportive for you and for the children, and what does that look like? But yeah, we both need it. It's not like one needs it more. I think what I see is oftentimes it's easier for dad to take the time than it is for mom. I mean, just even this,
Oh, yes. I
this comes up
agree.
all the time. It's like, you know, I'll have like, well, he always gets a shower in the morning. And I was like, I barely can get a shower. And it's like, why is that? Well, because he goes to take a shower. It's like, we're waiting for like permission. I sometimes hear that from moms, like, we're waiting for permission to go take a shower. No,
Yes.
go take a shower. Like, you don't need permission. You need to just do the things that you need to do for yourself. Or
Yeah,
here, if
just
you need
say,
permission, I'm giving you permission right now. Go take that shower, you know,
and
or whatever it
so
is you
funny
need.
though that you
Yeah.
said it. It's like a guy will go, hey, I'll be back later. I'm gonna go for,
Yeah.
round of golf.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get to the grocery store, but see, they just give themselves what they need.
Yeah.
We don't. And I love that, the story about the shower, because I can remember going, excuse me, like, and they just do what they gotta do. And
Yeah.
I think that is a big part of healing a wound within us as women,
Yeah.
that we have to be last on the list.
Yeah. And we don't, and we shouldn't be. And I'm like, this is how I try to, it's like, you know, you don't want your children to see you not taking care of yourself, because you don't want your kids growing up not knowing how to care for themselves, right? You need to model that for them. You need to let them see what it's like, hey, when I'm tired, I rest my body, or, you know, I make sure that I'm eating, you know, drinking my water every day. I'm making sure I'm eating nutritious meals. Like, I'm not just making you food, I'm giving myself food. Like, I've had moms do that. Like, they make all the best food for their kids. And then it's like, what are they eating? Whatever leftovers their kids don't eat. It's like, no, when you make them a meal, you make yourself a meal too. Like, don't stop putting yourself like on the back burner. Like, because you can't keep making those meals if you're not, you know, feeding yourself. Like, don't have their scraps, you know, that are left over. Like, you're giving them the organic berries. I mean, I've had moms do that. They get them the organic berries and they like blend their food, and it's like, well, what have you eaten? Oh, I grabbed, whatever, a bar, or I ate some chips or something. It's like, oh my goodness. Like, if you want your kids to do these things, like, you've got to model for them what the same thing.
Exactly. That was, I think that's what helped me change my life when I was younger is, oh my God, I'm a mirror. So she's going to grow up to be a young lady who puts herself last like I'm doing.
Yeah.
She was my catalyst, especially raising a daughter. She was my catalyst to heal that.
Right.
And I'm still healing it 39 years later, right?
Well, I think it's always like an ongoing process, right? Like, we heal parts, and then, there's always room for improvement and growth. And, I think that's life. That's the beauty of life, is like, we always want to grow and change. Or if we, hopefully we do, so that, we get to experience different things in the world.
Yeah. And you said your children are what, 10 and 14 now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're going up to the teen years, the next
Oh yeah.
I like the laugh. She's like, and I know what's coming.
Yeah.
So there's another transition as a couple that you go through, right? Because I notice at different times in a child's life, different roles. Like, one's either the rule breaker and one's the rule keeper as parent.
Yeah.
I was always the rule keeper, and my honey is always been, he goes, come on guys, I'm the rule breaker, in loving ways. But that is our dynamic. So there's always transitions that we as couples have to navigate.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because my kids will even say, like, oh, we know this is what we go to you for, mom, versus what we go to dad for. And so then again, that's why it's so important that, my husband and I are communicating with each other and talking to each other, because I don't want, like, I don't want them to, like, get in the middle of our relationship. Like, our communication is so important, and so that we can work together as a team, so our kids see what that's like, and I didn't have that growing up, and my husband didn't have that growing up. So a lot of it's been like, okay, how do we want to do things differently so that we can be, we can be good models, for our
For
children.
them.
Yeah.
And I think that's key too, because I've been with Dana for 29 years. So he came into my daughter's life when she was 10 and a half.
Mhm.
And their bond is, even though her dad was in her life, their bond, she had him walk her down the aisle. She had her dad walk
Oh.
the first part, and she wanted him to give her to Glenn. That their
Oh.
bond is priceless. And her
Yeah.
father is so at peace with that.
That's so nice.
Oh yeah, we've been co-creating. But the reason I bring that up is him and I, even though the family joke is he's the rule breaker, like he's the fun one, let's jump
Yeah.
off the dock, and I'm like, get your life vest, right? Like stuff like that. Between him and myself, we have parameters. We have
Mhm.
unspoken things that we agree to that they can't come up against. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like even now we have
Absolutely.
grandchildren, a 23-year-old grandson. There's values in certain things that are non-negotiable between him and I, that when the
Mhm.
kids come, they can't play sides because we're
Yes.
united.
Right. Right.
And honestly, I think that makes kids feel safe, and then they can't
Yeah.
get into, I'm going to run to mom because I know that
Yeah.
she won't honor that. Um,
Yes.
and honestly, they learn from example, right? It's not their fault. We're
Yeah.
teaching at all times what works.
Yeah.
I think for him and I, that was a big thing. Actually, he gave me the gift of becoming a more I don't want to say laid back mom, but I was so protective when I met him
Yeah.
because I was a single mom. So it had only been me and her. So I was very protective of her. And he's like,
Mhm.
baby, you got to give her some wings or she's going to run like hell. And I was like, but I don't want to,
Yeah. Yeah.
she hit like 14. But honestly, he was so right. He had a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
So for you, I want to talk about a little bit about, you believe that unshakable communication, collaboration, and connection
Mhm.
and sharing the mental load is so important in
Mhm.
reducing conflict. But where do they start? Like
Mhm.
with counseling or with a conversation because sometimes they're in a pattern. How do they break the pattern without support?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on how bad the pattern is, right? Or how, stuck in our ways that we are. But I mean, one of the things, I've said this already, but like, is these like regular check-ins with each other, like how, like, how am I doing? Like, this is what just even like, this is what's working well in our relationship. This is what I'm struggling with. This is, and they, these are ways I am grateful for how you're helping me. I think sometimes when we are so stuck in like what they're not doing well, we don't like that they're doing, that's what we're focusing on. So sometimes I also like to say, but what is it that they are doing that you do appreciate? It's like reminding them to kind of like focus and turn that around. Like if I'm like really frustrated with my husband, usually it's a couple things. Like we haven't spent enough quality time together. And so then it's like, and it's like, right now we're in the stage where our kids are in these activities and stuff. And it's a lot of running around and, going, from one end of the town to the other. So it's like making sure like, okay, we still have like quality check-in time with each other, date nights, whatever that is. But then also like that I notice like the things I do appreciate about him, how he is helping me. And then I'm not just focusing on the ways that he's irritating me or what I feel like he hasn't done, because he does more than he doesn't do. And so if I can focus on that, it's much easier. Like I have a much better time, like feeling connected and feeling supported by him. And then I say, hey, like I'm really struggling with X, Y, and Z, or I feel like I need help in this area. And then we can have a better conversation than if I go to him and be like, oh my gosh, you never are doing da 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 da. I always have to do this, And so it's like I've just found that to work so much better. Personally, but also professionally. So, having these regular check-in times with each other, even having, meetings with each other where we're looking at our schedules and like where, what are the things that are coming up? Like, our kids are still in school. It's like they have like a couple more weeks of school here. And so it's like, there's a lot of different activities and different things that we don't normally have. So it's like, I can't take them to all this stuff. And I used to think, for whatever reason, I used to think I had to, until finally he was like, no, I can do these things too. Like I can take time off work to like go to doctor's appointments or whatever it is, And so it's like really like working together to like, manage our schedules to make sure these things are you know, being met. And like, but having that time to like look at that and do that and check in with each other. Or it's like, oh, like, hey, I'm not going to be available because I've got, these big meetings coming up or whatever it is. It's like, okay, so I know, do I need to adjust my schedule or do I need to, employ some, family support or, friends or something to help us do, some things because like it's going to be too difficult. Like, but then I can know that and look at that and then get the help that we need. But it's like,
I love that. It's about being a team. It's about,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, because you do that at work, right? It's not like, you have these teams or management or whatever. It's not like you're just doing it by yourself. It's like you're having to check in with each other. It's like we need to do that as a family. Like, and now that my kids are older, it's also like, okay, like how are they contributing? How are they helping? And it's not like I just don't want to always be telling you like do this, do that, do that, like you teaching them like some responsibility along with that too.
I think that's so important. I think it's so important for them to be who they're meant to be in this world.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take our final break and come back for the last segment, and let's talk about that more because I really think it needs to be a team. And I just loved how you said about planning. So we're going to be back in a moment, my friends. I'm with Catherine O'Brien. Grab her book at happywithbaby.com. We'll be right back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you struggling to grow your mission-driven business in a way that feeds your soul and fulfills your purpose? When you discover your unique human design and divine blueprint, you'll feel empowered in your business, aligned with your inner wisdom, and open to the flow of abundance and success. Nancy O'Keefe is a certified human design specialist and intuitive business coach, successfully coaching entrepreneurs for over 25 years. She is passionate about helping you understand your divine design and your personal formula for success. She knows what it takes after creating her own multi-seven-figure firm. Nancy helps women peel back the layers of who they've been taught to be to reveal who they truly are, so they can build an abundant and sustainable business that feeds their soul. Schedule your complimentary call today at nancyokeefecoaching.com.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Catherine O'Brien, and we're talking about parenting and some of the difficulties that may arise when the new baby comes into the home. I love what you were saying before the last break. So in this last segment, in a few minutes, I'd love to talk about how we went into that last segment about also bringing that in for the children, that they're part of the team too, that they're part of a family unit, and all of us have to work together to make it flow right. It can't just be on mama and daddy once they get to certain ages, because I believe we need to prepare them for the real world. And the real world isn't a mommy and daddy that's going to be taking care of everything for them.
Right.
So did you start them from a young age? Do you believe in just, giving them responsibilities right from a young age?
Yes. And also from a young age, they want to help. So I think you've got to seize those moments. Like, I mean, I remember, our kids liking to, line up the shoes and put those away, do like little organization things from a really young age. So I'm like, okay, and our oldest used to love to like vacuum. and just thought that was just the funnest thing, so it's like, so like really seizing that and getting in the habit of like, yeah, these are our responsibilities, and, of course, age appropriate things that they can actually handle and do. And then they continue to do that. And we just had a conversation last night with our kids. It's like, yeah, like sometimes you have different things going on in, your schedule, like our son's finishing up his 8th grade year and has some tests and stuff like that. So maybe it's hard to do some of your chores. And then how do we help each other? How do we ask for help and not just expect like, well, I don't have to do it because, I'm doing these other things. It's like, no, it's like, maybe you're not able to do it, but then you communicate, and we're more than happy to help out, but don't expect like that's just how it's going to be and that it's going to fall on somebody else. Like, because I think this is important too, as they go into the workforce. It's like, no, you're responsible for your job, and you need to do a good job at that. But also like sometimes like maybe too much comes on, and how do you ask for help in those moments, or how do you notice somebody else is struggling, and can you reach out and offer help and support? So it's like trying to model that. Like, let me be honest, like this is sometimes it's easier than others,
Of course it is.
it's not always great, but trying to like just even having those conversations, even if it's not working out, they've heard it and they keep hearing it, and that eventually it's going to click, even if they're not doing it, eventually it does click. And how you like apologize, like, young children even apologize, people are like telling them to say sorry. They don't know what they're saying sorry for about things like that. But now, like, as I've like modeled like how, to make, apologies, and like when I've done wrong and notice that, like, I know my kids will do that now, like when they've had a moment of upset. Like I said, I have a 14-year-old, so there's moments where he's upset. I don't even know sometimes if he knows why he's upset. It's like the hormones and all that stuff, right, that teenagers go through. But he'll come back and he'll make those apologies, and it's like, okay, like he's really understanding, like, yeah, my impact and how it affects other people, and how do I make that better. Like I want them to see that, like, how do we work together? How do we, even when we're upset with each other, because we will, I mean, there's no way to be in a relationship with somebody and that you're not going to be disappointed at some point or get upset with them. But how do you fix that? How do you fix it when things don't work?
Oh, I think that's key. And I love that. And that was me as a teen, so I can relate to your son. I love that he comes back, because in the moment at that age, they're just in the moment. They're just reacting. But his heart comes back, and circles back like, hey, Mom, sorry. Because I've always told my daughter, even at a young age, and my our grandchildren, the same thing. You can feel everything. You can feel anything. You can express what you need to express, but you always do it with respect. Right. So there's nothing wrong with any of your feelings, but so I've always basically said, you can say anything to me, just always be aware of how you're saying it. Right. Because it's an energy exchange. I believe in, like, words have energy, and you can't take the words back. And that leaves an energetic imprint on someone. So when you're coming from a place of reaction, you can cause pain when you're reacting instead of responding, and just to be conscious of the words. But as a teenager, that's hard. They can't regulate.
And I think it's like, and I hear that from other parents too. It's like, and he's even said, like, one day he was like upset, he wasn't doing, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I don't know, like, just my body feels like, I don't know what's wrong, and I'm like, oh, buddy,
exactly.
I feel you, like, and I think it's like, we just got to give them that space to like have that, like that, that's like,
you have to, because they can't regulate. Like at that age, I'm not talking about when they're a little older. At that age, they can't self-regulate, and it's as frustrating for them when they have an outburst.
Absolutely.
Like they feel, in a lot of cases, sometimes they feel shame. Right. Like, I can't believe I just said that. I don't even know why I said it. I'm not even know why I'm upset. So giving that compassion back to them while holding the container of expectations. Right?
Absolutely. And because like you said, I think it helps them feel safe and like, okay, like, yes, I get that you're upset, and there's certain ways that we handle it, and I'm here and I'm supportive, and I'll, I'll give you that, I'll give you that space there. And yeah. And it's like, and I've found that if I, cause sometimes it's upsetting, like, especially, from a young age when they're upset acting like about something and you're like, this is ridiculous. But if I get upset about it or whatever, it's going to drag it out longer than if I'm like, okay, I'm just going to, and this is where it comes back to the self-care. Like if I'm not taking care of myself, I have less patience for when they have their moments.
Yeah,
And
less
so,
patience, compassion, empathy.
yes.
I mean,
So it's like, yeah. So it's like and you need a lot, like you need a lot throughout parenting, right? You need to be able to hold that. So that's why it's like, we have to be giving to ourselves too, because it's hard to have that when we don't.
Well, Catherine, you shared so much wisdom during this conversation. I want to invite everyone to please visit happywithbaby.com. There are so many resources that you can tap into. Grab a copy of her book, Happy with Baby. Stay connected with her. Visit her on all her social media channels, because we all need love and support on this parenting journey, no matter how old the children are. And Catherine, I want to thank you for just being such a light in the world and supporting families and navigating difficult challenges as they parent. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.